Long before claw met flesh, before hoof thundered across open plains, there was only fire. Fire, and a great groaning scar ripping through the flesh of the earth itself. The Great Rift Valley was no gentle creation. It was born from violence, a primal upheaval where the planet, restless and unsatisfied, tore its own skin apart. Deep beneath the future grasslands, tectonic plates, massive as lost continents, wrestled like drunken giants, snapping the surface into broken splinters. Volcanoes roared from the wounds, vomiting molten rivers that cooled into black bones. Craters yawned into existence, vast and smoking, their breath heavy with sulfur and newness. It was a world sculpted by rage, and one that would become the stage for nature's bloodiest dramas. As the eons dragged their heavy fingers across the rift, the chaos slowly hardened into structure. Towering escarpments rose like ancient battlements, sheltering vast basins that, against all odds, filled with water. Lakes Tanganyika, Malawi, and Turkana shimmered into being, their surfaces deceivingly serene, hiding the volcanic fury simmering in their depths. Around them, life inched forward, tentative at first, like timid actors testing a cursed stage. But the land whispered promises to those daring enough to listen. Here, the strong will thrive, the cunning will rule, and the bold will feast. The rift's geography alone is a masterpiece of savage design. Cracked earth gives way to endless golden savannas, only to break again into dense forests or sudden alkaline lakes so caustic they bleach the bones of anything foolish enough to enter. The climate is as fickle as a predator's mercy. Drenching rains one moment, bone-dry famine the next. It is this unpredictability, this living roulette, that forged creatures like no other. Here, evolution doesn't meander. It sprints, it ambushes, it claws its way toward survival. And oh, what creatures answered the call. Lions rose here, their manes dark and thick, as if the rift's volcanic heart beat within their blood. Hyenas crafted their dark empires here, developing minds as ruthless and strategic as any general. Cheetahs sculpted themselves into arrows of muscle and bone, designed not just for speed, but for gambles so reckless that a single misstep meant starvation. Crocodiles, those ancient reptiles who once watched dinosaurs fall, simply grunted at the newcomers and stayed put, unchanged, unimpressed, and unimaginably lethal. Even the birds adapted to this madness, with vultures soaring as airborne reapers and eagles raining down like spears from cloud-throned heights. Yet it is not just the predators that tell the rift story, it's the conflict itself. Every blade of grass that trembles in the rift trembles with tension. Every watering hole is a trap disguised as salvation. Every sunset paints the world in gold not to soothe, but to signal that night and all its terrors is coming. There are no safe seasons. There are no resting days. In the rift, even peace is just the eye of the next storm. The irony of it all is almost comical, a place so hostile that it became the very cradle of human life. Our own ancestors stumbled blinking into this furnace of competition, learning to walk upright, not because they wished to explore, but because seeing above the grass meant spotting the lion's approach a second earlier. Opposable thumbs, tool use, fire mastery, all gifts extracted painfully from a landscape that offered no charity, only challenges. In a way, every scream in the rift, every victorious roar or defeated whimper is woven into our DNA. A grim inheritance from a place that never coddled its children. Even today, the rift shifts and growls underfoot, as if remembering its ancient violence. Minor earthquakes rattle the ground like a beast clearing its throat. Sulfur springs bubble up from hidden chambers, painting rocks in colors so toxic they seem almost theatrical. Herds of wildebeest thunder across the plains in desperate migrations, shadowed by cunning packs of predators who learned long ago that patience kills just as surely as speed. Crocodiles, nearly invisible under muddy river waters, flex their armored bodies and wait, ancient as gods, for the parade of life to stumble into their reach once again. But for all its mercilessness, the rift is not without its strange sense of humor. Nature here is a trickster at heart. Flamingos, delicate, absurdly pink birds that seem better suited for birthday cakes than battlefields, gather by the millions on lakes so toxic they calcify anything unlucky enough to sink. In the very same waters that turn bones to stone, flamingos dance, oblivious and blissfully alive. Giraffes, those gangly giants who look like poorly assembled carnival rides, navigate thorn-riddled forests with a grace that defies their construction, plucking leaves from spiked branches with tongues longer than your forearm. It's as if nature, in a brief moment of lunacy, decided to offset the blood and dust with flashes of surreal comedy. Yet humor here is a thin veneer. Underneath the oddities and marvels, the rift remains what it has always been, a battleground without mercy. Territories are drawn not with treaties, but with teeth. Alliances are whispered not in words, but in survival instincts. To be born here is to be thrown onto a chessboard where every move is a gamble, and most end in blood. And the rift shows no signs of tiring. If anything, the competition is sharpening. As climate patterns shift and human encroachment edges closer, predators are forced to adapt in ways their ancestors never dreamed of. Lions now hunt buffalo herds hardened by drought. Crocodiles lunge at fishing boats as prey becomes scarcer. Hyena clans clash in civil wars when territories shrink. In the rift, survival isn't a tradition. It's a revolution that must be fought anew with every sunrise. But what the rift takes away in mercy, it returns in spectacle. Every hunt, every stampede, every skirmish under a blood-red sky is a testament to a land that refuses to grow tame. A reminder that for all our cities and satellites, the heart of Earth still beats strongest in places where survival is raw, immediate, and gloriously unapologetic. And as the rift breathes its ancient, sulfur-scented breath into the cooling twilight, one thing becomes clear. Here, in this savage cradle, the wars of tooth and claw are just beginning. Ahead, we will step closer into the rift's living armies, into the roaring coalitions, the lightning-fast assassins, the hyena warlords and crocodile tyrants. But first, brace yourself. The kings of the rift do not share their thrones easily. The sun is still low when the ground begins to tremble. It is not an earthquake this time. It is something more deliberate, more menacing. A low, resonant growl rolls over the plains like distant thunder, a warning carried by the rift's restless winds. From behind the swaying curtain of yellow grasses, they emerge, not one lion nor two, but a battalion of muscle and mane, moving as a single breathing organism, a coalition. Nature's answer to the question, what happens when apex predators stop fighting each other and start fighting together? There is something unnervingly organized about a male lion coalition. These are not the lazy kings of popular imagination, lounging in sunbeams and yawning theatrically. These are conquerors, warriors without crowns but with blood-soaked ambitions. Brothers, cousins, or sometimes merely opportunistic allies. They band together not for friendship, but for domination. In a landscape where lone males are quickly swallowed by the merciless tides of competition, coalitions carve out empires by sheer force of numbers. 3 males, 5, sometimes even 6 or more, a pride of their own, built not around nurturing cubs, but around seizing power, holding it with claws dug deep into the earth. Each step they take smells of authority, a cocktail of crushed grass, dust, and the musky tang of old blood clinging stubbornly to their manes. The rift watches them with wary respect. Herds of antelope, who moments ago had been debating grazing spots with the casual indecisiveness of tourists at a buffet, now freeze into statues, sensing the approach of something that hunts not from hunger alone, but from habit, from boredom, from the sheer audacity of being untouchable. Yet in the rift's twisted sense of fairness, power is never permanent, and alliances are as fragile as spider silk. Among coalitions, betrayal simmers beneath the surface like magma under a cracked volcano. Partners in conquest become rivals the moment opportunity blooms. Infamous coalitions such as the Mapogo brothers of South Africa, who once painted the savannah red with their campaigns of violence, rose to mythic heights only to collapse under the inevitable weight of their own ambitions. Dominance here is a loan, never a gift, and the interest compounds brutally. But if coalitions are the armies of the rift, then the solo males are its tragic knights, lone, battered, and burning with a different kind of fire. Among them some names, whispered by rangers, feared by rivals, become legend. Males like Mr. T of the Mapogo, known not just for his brutal efficiency, but for his blood-curdling roar that once emptied an entire valley of sound. Solitary titans who, against every sensible calculation, stand alone against the overwhelming tide of numbers. There is a strange, almost Shakespearean grandeur to these loners. They patrol the invisible borders of a lost kingdom, carrying their scars like badges of honor. their manes often darker, scruffier, telling tales of countless battles survived by skin and savagery alone. Without the luxury of allies, they must rely on sheer ferocity and cunning, ambushing larger groups by night, stealing kills from distracted prides, sometimes even sowing discord among coalition ranks just long enough to snatch a chance at survival. In the rift, cunning is often sharper than claws. Surprisingly, it is not always the coalition that wins. Nature, ever the lover of irony, often tips the scales in favor of the reckless. A single rogue lion, burning with desperation, can unleash a ferocity so berserk that even a group of seasoned killers thinks twice. There are recorded battles where solo males have toppled entire coalitions, scattering them like dry leaves in a storm. Victory does not always favor the strongest or the largest. Sometimes it favors the hungriest, the maddest, the one too stubborn to fall. When coalitions do seize power, however, their reigns are apocalyptic. They do not simply oust the previous rulers, they erase them. The ritual is grim but efficient. Kill the adult males, slaughter any cubs sired by them, and mate with the females to reset the genetic clock. The brutal practice of infanticide, while horrifying to human sensibilities, is cold evolutionary logic. A lioness nursing cubs will not come into heat. Remove the cubs and the pride falls into fertile chaos, ready to accept the new regime's bloodline. The sounds of a pride takeover are unlike any other in the natural world. The guttural, hacking roars of fighting males, the shrieks of lionesses trying futilely to protect their young, the panicked, high-pitched cries of cubs disappearing under a storm of claws. The air grows thick with the scent of torn flesh and scorched grass, as if the very land mourns the brutality it must endure again and again. And yet, strangely, in the midst of all this carnage, life finds a way to flourish. A pride under new rulers often enjoys a golden age. Fresh cubs, strong protection, expanded territories. The violence is a grotesque kind of gardening, clearing away the old to make room for the new. It is not kindness that nourishes the rift. It is chaos, sharpened and honed into a cycle so ruthless that it keeps the plains brimming with vitality. Beyond the obvious bloodshed, coalitions and solo titans weave a more subtle war, a war of territory, scent and song. Males roar into the twilight not just to advertise their presence, but to measure the strength of rivals hidden by distance and darkness. Roaring is a performance and a provocation, a way of bluffing, gauging, daring. Sometimes, two rival coalitions will exchange roars for hours, neither willing to gamble flesh until the balance of fear tips. These sonic battles ripple across the landscape like invisible shockwaves, causing prey animals to huddle closer, uneasy, knowing that somewhere beyond the reach of moonlight, monsters are challenging each other for the right to be their executioners. Perhaps the most poignant irony of all is that for lions, to win is to paint a target on your own back. Every victory makes a coalition fatter, slower, more complacent. Every takeover inspires the next uprising. Time moves differently for the crowned kings of the rift. They are rulers for a season at best, before becoming footnotes in another male's bloody ascent. In this endless Game of Thrones, there are no true kings, only survivors. As the morning haze thickens and the sun climbs reluctantly into a bruised sky, a lone lion, his mane patchy, his frame gaunt, but his eyes burning like twin embers, slinks along the edge of a newly conquered pride's territory. The coalition basking within has not yet noticed him, but he watches, waits, plans. For in the rift, no empire stands for long. No coalition sleeps without nightmares. No titan bleeds without scheming his revenge. Ahead, we follow the rift's most daring gamblers, the cheetahs, who trade brute strength for breathtaking speed, betting their lives on every heartbeat. But as we shall see in a land ruled by ambush and treachery, even speed demons are never truly safe. The morning air is crisp, crackling with unseen electricity, as a faint mist curls low over the rift's endless grasslands. From a distance, the savannah looks peaceful, a soft, rippling sea of gold under a sky bruised with the last embers of dawn. But beneath the tranquil facade, tension hums, sharp and hungry. Every blade of grass conceals ambition. Every shadow might shelter a killer. And slicing through this web of risk, light as a whisper and deadly as a bullet, is the cheetah. There is a peculiar arrogance to the way a cheetah moves, an effortless glide of lean muscle over bone, as if gravity itself is merely a polite suggestion. Built more like a greyhound than a cat, the cheetah seems almost out of place among the rift's heavyweights. There is no thick mane to intimidate, No massive jaws to crush bone, no armored hide to deflect blows. Instead, nature dealt it a gambler's hand. Speed, acceleration, and a breathtaking recklessness that makes every hunt a roll of loaded dice. From a standstill, a cheetah can explode to 60 miles per hour in mere seconds, its claws unsheathing like cleats, gripping the earth with ruthless efficiency. The air trembles as it passes, stirred by a body engineered for this singular purpose, the kill-shot sprint. Yet this miraculous speed comes at a price. Beneath the spotted coat, a cheetah's bones are thin and almost bird-like, its chest cradling a heart that flutters frantically against a ribcage far too fragile for combat. Chase too long, and the body overheats like a faulty engine. Trip in full stride, and bones snap like dry twigs. Here in the rift, speed isn't a luxury. It's a necessity born from mortal frailty. It is a cruel irony that the rift offers no safe victories. A successful chase leaves the cheetah panting, half paralyzed with exhaustion, sprawled vulnerable beside its kill. Eyes flicker nervously to every movement in the grass, not out of pride but of dread. For speed may catch a meal, but it cannot defend it. The real sharks of the savannah, hyenas, lions, even opportunistic jackals, are never far behind, sniffing out the blood scent that drifts lazily into the morning air. For the cheetah, a fresh kill is less a celebration than a race against time. Devour what you can before the thugs arrive. And they always do. The rift's golden rule is painfully simple. The strong steal from the swift. Hyenas swagger in with the confidence of bouncers at a nightclub, scattering cheetahs like leaves before a storm. Lions, unhurried and smirking, claim kills as casually as royalty claiming taxes. Even a lone vulture's lazy spiral above can summon a mob of scavengers within minutes. Watching a cheetah drag its hard-won meal into the bushes, head swiveling anxiously, tongue lolling in desperate haste, is to witness an athlete gasping on the edge of collapse, knowing that the finish line was only half the race. But the rift, ever fond of paradoxes, sweetens the tragedy with glimpses of stunning resilience. Nowhere is this clearer than in the life of a cheetah mother. With no pride to shield her, no coalition to back her charge, she raises her cubs alone in a world where every rustle of grass could spell death. She teaches them to walk by dodging ambushes, to eat by stealing scraps, to hunt by practicing desperate chases on half-grown gazelles. Their nursery is not a den, but a movable feast of danger. Today hidden under thorn bushes, tomorrow crouched in gullies, always dancing just out of reach of lions, hyenas and eagles who view cheetah cubs as snack-sized opportunities. At times, her cunning borders on artistry. She will fake injuries to lure predators away from hidden cubs, weaving her own survival into theirs with threads of sheer audacity. Yet despite her bravery, despite every trick and every gamble, statistics are merciless. Nearly 90% of cheetah cubs do not survive their first year. Childhood here is a ruthless filtration system, trimming away the slow, the unlucky, and sometimes just the poorly hidden. Even adult cheetahs face an existence defined by high-stakes risk. A cheetah might hunt 2, 3, even 4 times in a single day, burning through energy reserves at a pace that would cripple any lesser beast. Every chase leaves the cheetah not merely hungrier if it fails, but weaker, more vulnerable to attack, more desperate. It is a strategy so ludicrously stressful that one almost suspects nature created cheetahs on a dare, a living embodiment of reckless hope. And yet, against all logic, they flourish. Not through overwhelming strength, but through adaptability. Male cheetahs, unlike their solitary female counterparts, sometimes form coalitions of their own, small, tight brotherhoods that increase their odds of survival. Together they can protect kills longer, claim larger territories, and stage hunts with a precision that rivals even wolf packs. In the rift's never-ending casino, a coalition of male cheetahs is like a card shark with an ace up his sleeve, still playing against the odds, but with a sly smile that says, "I like my chances." Of course, even coalitions cannot eliminate the fundamental gamble. A broken leg, a stolen kill, an ambush at dusk, every day remains a negotiation with death. Yet there is a kind of mad beauty in watching a cheetah rise from its stolen meal, shake dust from its pelt, and vanish once more into the trembling grass, undeterred. Survival here is not a matter of brute force, but of stubborn grace, of sprinting headfirst into disaster and daring it to catch you. And perhaps that is the rift's greatest secret. It does not reward caution. It rewards those bold enough to bet their lives on a few glorious seconds of impossible speed. those foolish enough to chase gazelles through gauntlets of thieves, those stubborn enough to raise fragile cubs on a battlefield. It rewards the gamblers. As the afternoon heat leans heavy on the land, the grass sways again, betraying the ghost of a new chase brewing somewhere beyond sight. Another gamble, another heartbeat spent like a coin tossed into the rift's bottomless well of chance. Ahead, we plunge into the rift's nocturnal empire, where hyena warlords reign after sundown, and laughter is the sound of death stalking in the dark. Prepare to see the rift's underworld come alive, where strategy and savagery blend in ways no daylight predator could ever imagine. The light fades quickly in the rift. One moment the savannah is bathed in the molten gold of a dying sun. The next it sinks into a bruised and endless dusk, the colors draining from the world until only silhouettes remain. The air cools and thickens with the musky scent of damp earth, stirred by the restless movements of creatures awakening under the cloak of darkness. Somewhere beyond sight, the grasses shiver, not from the wind but from the marching of a new army. The lions may rule the day, but when night falls in the rift, the true emperors rise, the hyenas. Forget everything you think you know about them. The hyena is no mere scavenger, no snickering fool picking through scraps left behind by nobler beasts. Beneath that unsettling, manic laugh lies an empire, intricate, ruthless, and astonishingly sophisticated. The rift at night belongs not to kings, but to clans, and each hyena clan is less a family than a kingdom, governed by hierarchies so complex that human monarchies would blush in envy. Out in the shifting darkness, their voices knit the night together, haunting whoops that rise and fall like spectral war cries, high-pitched cackles that pulse with a feral joy, and low, mournful moans that ripple across the plains like the whispers of an unseen crowd. To the untrained ear, it is chaos. But to a hyena, every sound is loaded with information: location, strength, hunger, intention. It is a language of conquest spoken in frequencies no other predator dares to mimic. Moving closer, the shapes emerge, dozens of them, ghost-like in the half-light, their thick necks and powerful shoulders rolling under their spotted pelts. Each step is deliberate, each glance calculated. In hyena society, every gesture matters, every rank matters, and dominance is written into the very way a hyena carries itself. Here, females reign supreme. Larger, fiercer, and often meaner than their male counterparts, the matriarchs enforce a brutal order, leading hunts, commanding disputes, and passing on their royal bloodlines to daughters who will one day seize power in turn. Unlike the solitary quests of cheetahs or the male-dominated reigns of lions, hyena rule is corporate, strategic, and astonishingly resilient. Clans can number over 80 individuals, sprawling, mobile fortresses of teeth and ambition. They map the rift not in miles but in opportunity. Carcasses to be plundered, territories to be raided, rivals to be humiliated. To watch a hyena clan on the move is to witness a living organism. Scouts dart ahead like nervous electrons, the main force flowing behind with an unsettling organized purpose, while stragglers whisper along the flanks, sniffing the wind for trouble or opportunity. And trouble is never far away. In the rift's shadowed corners, rival clans meet not with cautious diplomacy, but with thunderous violence. Turf wars explode into chaotic battles where dozens of hyenas clash in whirlwinds of dust and screeching fury, snapping jaws finding purchase on legs, backs, throats. A single encounter can leave the ground littered with blood, the victors feasting on stolen kills, while the defeated limp away into the gloom, nursing their wounds and plotting vengeance. These are not mere brawls over scraps. They are wars of territory, pride, and survival. In the rift's nocturnal court, to lose is to be exiled, and exile is often a slow death. Yet there is wit stitched into this savagery. Hyenas are some of the most intelligent predators on Earth, their brains larger relative to body size than lions, their problem-solving skills rivaling those of primates. In scientific studies, hyenas outperformed chimps in complex social puzzles, navigating shifting alliances and intricate betrayals with a cunning that would make any politician nod in approval. They remember enemies, recognize friends, and even devise elaborate ruses to outwit competitors, setting ambushes and baiting rivals into traps that could only have been dreamed up by minds sharpened on generations of conflict. And oh, the paradoxes that hide in their lives. Hyenas can crush bones with a jaw pressure strong enough to pulverize a femur, yet their social lives are absurdly tender, filled with long, awkward greetings where they sniff and nuzzle each other in ways that resemble a particularly chaotic cocktail party. They are despised as scavengers, yet kill the majority of their own meals, often out-hunting the very lions that mock them. In fact, lions themselves fear the hyena's collective power. While a lone hyena is easy prey, a mob can strip a lion of its dignity, its food, and occasionally its life. Power, in the Rift's underworld, is not who has the biggest teeth, but who has the most teeth willing to fight together. Even their bodies are riddled with nature's odd humor. A female hyena's anatomy is so bizarre, with genitalia so similar to a male's that it baffled early biologists, that giving birth is a life-threatening ordeal, with cubs forced to navigate an impossibly narrow, twisted path into the world. Up to 60% of firstborn cubs die during labor, a grim toll exacted by evolutionary arms races over dominance signals. Yet those that survive are born into a society that will teach them early and ruthlessly the arts of survival, treachery, and ambition. As the night deepens, the clan's activities fracture and reform like living mercury. Some peel away to harass a group of wildebeest sheltering near a rocky outcrop, probing for a weakness. Others drift toward a distant lion, pride feasting on a kill, their approach slow and methodical, voices rising in mocking laughter as they circle closer. It is not madness, it is psychological warfare. Loud whooping choruses are weaponized to sow panic, to test courage, to scatter the defenders before a full assault. In the rift, sound itself is a blade. If the hyenas succeed, the scene turns instantly from siege to slaughter, with the victors snarling and snapping over scraps, blood matting their grins into grotesque masks of triumph. If they fail, they retreat laughing, as if the defeat were only a minor inconvenience, another round in an endless, exhilarating game. And perhaps it is. For the hyenas, night is a time of possibilities, of gambles and raids, of alliances whispered under the stars and betrayals plotted in the dark. Their empire is fluid, its borders drawn and redrawn nightly, its wars waged not for glory, but for the right to wake tomorrow and fight again. As dawn's first pale fingers creep over the broken hills, the hyenas begin to fade into the long shadows, their bloodied faces lifting to the light with an almost disdainful amusement. Another night conquered, another chapter written in the Rift's ever-turning ledger of power. Somewhere, a lion roars weakly, a cheetah limps away from a lost meal, a zebra foal shivers in exhausted terror. But the hyenas, they laugh, not because life is easy, but because in the Rift's dark empire, laughter is survival. Ahead, we dive into the rivers of the Rift, where another kind of terror waits, silent, patient, and armor-clad. Prepare to meet the crocodiles who rule the waters with jaws older than time itself. The river lies still under the heat of the Rift's merciless sun, a slick ribbon of molten bronze weaving lazily between cracked banks. It seems at first glance to be sleeping, a sluggish vein in a land of dust and urgency. The surface shimmers, broken only by drifting mats of water hyacinth and the lazy buzz of dragonflies tracing invisible patterns in the air. But beneath that glassy calm, an ancient kingdom waits, patient as stone and twice as deadly. There is no warning when the first wildebeest arrives at the water's edge. The herd has been driven here by hunger, exhaustion, and an unspoken knowledge that survival always lies on the other side of peril. Their hooves clatter nervously on the rocky bank, noses raised to scent the air, nostrils flaring wide. They smell water, yes, but also something else, something heavy, primal, metallic. The scent of scales long soaked in blood and silt. Still, thirst is a brutal master. One by one they begin to move, tentative steps splashing into the shallows. Dust billows around them, a golden fog veiling the disaster about to unfold. For in these waters, predators do not chase, they do not pounce, they simply wait. The crocodiles of the Rift are not creatures of haste. They are monuments to an era when reptiles ruled without apology. Their bodies, armored in scales so tough they deflect teeth and claws, glide unseen beneath the muddy currents. They are not merely survivors, they are sovereigns of patience, mastering the art of stillness so completely that the water itself seems to forget they are there. In the world's most dangerous casino, the crocodile is the dealer. the river his table, and every thirsty animal a gambler about to lose everything. And when they strike, it is without warning or mercy. The water erupts in a violence so sudden it seems almost supernatural. A flash of muscle, a snap of jaws, and the wildebeest disappears in a roiling vortex of foam and blood. The infamous death roll begins, a whirling, savage ballet designed not to kill with a bite, but with physics. As the crocodile spins, it tears flesh from bone, drowns the prey in a torrent of force, and shatters joints with a ferocity no escape artist could survive. But in the rift, even the crocodiles, those timeless warlords, must play the long game. River crossings are not casual meals. They are seasonal feasts critical to survival. A large crocodile can gorge so completely during a migration that it might not need another substantial meal for months. Their metabolism slows to a crawl, heartbeats dropping to less than 3 per minute, their bodies slipping into a torpor that seems more like a sinister meditation than slumber. Here, patience is not just a virtue. It is strategy, weaponized and perfected. Yet power in the river is not absolute. Territory matters. Stretch by stretch, bend by bend, the river is divided into invisible dominions, each ruled by dominant crocodiles, who enforce their reigns through brutal skirmishes. Younger crocs, reckless and ambitious, test their luck at the edges, snapping and posturing, sometimes paying with snapped limbs and shattered dreams. Even among the oldest reptiles, politics thrive. The largest males, sometimes over 18 feet long, their backs crusted with scars and algae, are less hunters than landowners, controlling prime ambush zones where the crossing paths are narrowest, the currents swiftest, the escape routes non-existent. It is a curious thing that these monstrous reptiles, so often caricatured as mindless killing machines, are anything but. Observations reveal behaviors eerily reminiscent of tactical planning. Crocodiles position themselves with mathematical precision, adjusting for the angles of incoming herds, the depth of the channel, the strength of the current. They time their attacks to cause maximum panic, scattering the herd into vulnerable fragments. In these moments, chaos becomes currency. A drowning calf here, a panicked adult there, a feast scattered across the flood. Stranger still are the moments of cooperation. Sometimes multiple crocodiles converge on a large prey animal, a full-grown zebra or buffalo, not to fight over it, but to share. Working together, they tear the prize into manageable chunks, each taking a portion and retreating without excessive violence. In a kingdom founded on ambush and terror, this grim civility feels almost indecent. A brief glimpse into a social order deeper and more complex than raw savagery would suggest. And the river itself is no neutral bystander. During the dry season, as the sun leaches the land and shrinks the river into shrinking pools of stagnant water, the crocodiles adapt again. They burrow into the mud, creating suffocating cocoons to wait out the worst of the drought. In these self-made tombs, they suspend themselves between life and death, breathing slowly, dreaming reptilian dreams of the floods that will one day return. In the rift, survival belongs not to those who run fastest, but to those who can sleep through apocalypse. Of course, not every hunt ends in triumph. Wildebeest are not fools. Some stampede back up the banks in frenzied waves, trampling the slow and the unlucky, leaving crocodiles snapping at nothing but mud and ghostly ripples. Occasionally, a crocodile overreaches, surging too far onto dry land and finding itself marooned, a thrashing, gasping titan, awkward and vulnerable under the merciless sun. The rift, ever impartial, punishes overconfidence with the same brutal efficiency it punishes weakness. As twilight begins to bleed across the sky, painting the river in bruises and fire, the last of the crossing wildebeest disappear into the grasses beyond. The water settles once more into its deceptive calm, blood and mud swirling into a murky oblivion. Along the banks, crocodiles return to their hidden stations, slipping beneath the surface like forgotten sins. The river looks empty, harmless, peaceful. But the rift remembers, and so do the crocodiles. The next herd is already on its way, somewhere beyond the horizon, noses lifted to catch the scent of promised water. Another gamble, another chapter, another chance for the kings of the river to claim their dues. Ahead, the drama shifts to the rift's most secretive hunters, the silent assassins who stalk from the trees and vanish like ghosts. Prepare to meet the leopards, masters of ambush and the architects of twilight terror. The rift sleeps under a heavy quilt of mist, stitched in silver by the rising moon. The vast savannah lies hushed, cloaked in velvet shadows, while rocky escarpments and twisted acacia trees loom like ancient sentinels, their forms warped by darkness and dreams. The air is cool, thick with the sharp scent of crushed grass and damp soil, every sound muted but magnified. A distant frog's croak, the rustle of unseen wings, the low, uneasy murmur of a wildebeest herd huddled too close together, as if clinging to the fragile idea of safety. And somewhere, out beyond the range of mortal senses, death moves without a sound. The leopard does not announce its arrival. It is not like the lion whose roars shatter the plains, nor like the hyena whose raucous laughter stitches nightmares into the night. The leopard is the rift's ghost, a phantom stitched together from moonlight and muscle, vanishing before the eye can even register the flick of a tail. Its very existence seems improbable, too graceful to be real, too lethal to be merely beautiful. To glimpse a leopard in the wild is to question whether you saw anything at all, or merely a figment conjured by the dreaming rift. Among the rift's predators, leopards have carved a unique dominion, not by overwhelming strength or numbers, but by mastering the one tactic that even the most brutal king must respect: invisibility. Every curve of the rift's broken landscape, every ravine, every boulder, every tangled thicket is an accomplice in the leopard's endless theater of ambush. Their rosetted coats are not merely decoration. They are armor woven from illusion itself, breaking their outline into a shifting kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Under the right tree, even the sharpest eye can search until it weeps and still miss the coiled promise of muscle waiting overhead. And when they strike, it is with breathtaking precision. A leopard can fall from a tree like a bolt of midnight lightning, a silent bomb of claws and teeth. Prey has no time to scream. One heartbeat there is safety. The next there is nothing but the crushing embrace of death. Small antelope, unsuspecting birds, even baboons, all vanish under the same swift, surgical violence. But it is not just the easy kills that build the leopard's legend. It is the daring ones. There are whispered stories from seasoned guides, stories that smell of campfire smoke and awe, of leopards stealing kills from beneath lion prides, slipping between sleeping behemoths with a stolen impala dangling from their jaws, their paws pressing so lightly against the earth that not even dust dares to betray them. Tales of leopards ambushing hyenas at waterholes, defying the very laws of logic by overpowering an opponent nearly their own size, dragging their spoils up into the arms of trees to dine alone under the stars. In the rift, where every meal is contested, the leopard's survival depends not just on skill, but on audacity. There is humor here too, sly and cruel. Watching a leopard with its kill is to witness nature's most theatrical vanishing act. With muscles like liquid steel, it can haul prey twice its weight up into the branches, leaving lions and hyenas grumbling impotently below. Sometimes, when particularly irritated by scavengers, a leopard will sit sprawled across a high limb, tail flicking lazily, casually letting scraps tumble to the ground. A passive-aggressive rain of bones and tendons, delivered with the smug detachment of an artist critiquing lesser imitators. In a world where battles are usually fought tooth to tooth, the leopard wins by making sure the battlefield never even knows it's been challenged. Yet despite their mastery of stealth, life for leopards in the rift is a delicate high-wire dance. They are supreme hunters, but not invincible. Every meal must be weighed against the risk of discovery. Cubs must be hidden not just from predators but from other leopards, for even among their kind, competition can erupt into fatal encounters. Males patrol vast, overlapping territories, ghosting past each other by sheer spatial cunning, a ballet of mutual avoidance, each determined to outlast, outwit, outvanish the others. And then there are the surprises, for the rift, ever the trickster, weaves paradox into its predators as deftly as blood into its soil. Despite their solitary natures, leopards display remarkable adaptability. In places where prey is plentiful and competition fierce, some leopards tolerate strange arrangements, loose associations where individuals shadow each other without open hostility, temporary truces between females, even father leopards, long considered aloof and indifferent, guarding cubs from rival males. These alliances are fleeting, brittle as spider silk, but they reveal a creature capable not just of raw survival, but of cunning evolution. Even the way they move through their territories is a masterclass in calculated improvisation. A leopard's patrol path is not a mindless loop, but a living map that shifts with the winds, the seasons, and the pulse of prey movements. Trails etched into memory wind along dry riverbeds, skirt predator hotspots, and vanish into labyrinths of kopjes and gorges where few others dare follow. Here, the rift's twisted geology is not an obstacle but a weapon, an arsenal of hideouts and launch pads for silent murder. As the night deepens, the leopard becomes one with the darkness. Somewhere, a bushbuck freezes mid-browse, its ears flickering, its wide eyes scanning shadows that give no hint of threat. Somewhere, a family of warthogs snuffles deeper into their burrow, blissfully unaware that claws, not dreams, hover just outside the threshold. The leopard moves unseen, unheard, unchallenged, until it strikes. There is no prelude. One moment the night is filled with the sleepy rustle of small lives. The next, there is a soft thud, a muffled gasp, and the rift closes around the event like a curtain falling over a secret never meant to be shared. A brief, brutal punctuation in the endless script of survival. As dawn unfurls its bruised colors across the horizon, the leopard melts back into the landscape, a whisper returning to silence. Only a faint drag mark through the dust, a blood-specked leaf fluttering on the breeze, hints that anything happened at all. In the rift, the ghost has fed, and the living, for now, still cling to their dreams. But even ghosts are not safe from the relentless march of skyborne assassins. Ahead, we turn our eyes to the heavens, where raptors rule, striking with deadly precision from a world above the world. The rift stretches wide beneath a boiling noon sun, the land shimmering as if breathing, its outlines melting into waves of heat. The ground groans under the weight of the day's fire, and animals, both predator and prey, sink low into the grass, hugging shadows that offer little relief. But while life on the ground surrenders to exhaustion, another battlefield stirs above, silent, merciless, and unseen by those tethered to the dust. High overhead, the sky itself becomes a hunting ground. Invisible currents of rising heat, thermals, spiral upwards, lifting the great raptors into an aerial kingdom where gravity holds no sway and the horizon curves away into forever. Here, eagles, vultures, and hawks drift like living kites, riding the breath of the earth with a mastery so effortless it borders on sorcery. Their wings barely move, yet they glide faster than a sprinting cheetah, their sharp eyes raking the ground for the faintest tremor of life, the slightest betrayal of weakness. There is no safety here, not even for the killers of the ground. A young lion cub, left unattended for a heartbeat too long, might suddenly vanish into the talons of a crowned eagle, a feathered assassin whose claws exert more force per inch than the bite of a wolf. A newborn gazelle, still trembling from the miracle of its first breath, can be plucked away as easily as a leaf caught in a breeze. In the rift, danger falls from the sky like a curse, swift and unforgiving. And the hunters come in many forms. The martial eagle, a giant of the skies, broad-winged and barrel-chested, cruises the airways like a winged tank. From 1,000 feet up, it can spot a rabbit twitching its nose, a mongoose glancing nervously over its shoulder. Its strikes are devastating, a thunderbolt wrapped in feathers, crashing down with talons wide and murderous. Martial eagles have been known to kill impalas outright, hammering down with such ferocity that the prey hardly realizes death has arrived until it is hoisted skyward, a dangling, lifeless prize. Not all raptors strike for the kill. Some reign terror in more insidious ways. The vultures, the rift's most misunderstood citizens, ride the thermals in a slow, patient ballet, their bald heads swinging, their beady eyes scanning for signs of death. Far from the cowardly scavengers of myth, vultures are the rift's emergency cleanup crew, the final act in the theater of life and death. Without them, the land would choke on its own rot. Their stomach acids are so corrosive they can neutralize anthrax. Their movements so keen that a single circling vulture can summon dozens more within minutes, a living tornado of bone, beak, and appetite. And then there are the sneaks, the kites and hawks, feathered pickpockets who slip through the chaos of hunts and feeding frenzies to snatch morsels mid-air, plucking scraps from right under a lion's nose with a daring that would make any ground predator blink in disbelief. Black kites, in particular, have a talent for stealing from fires, swooping through the smoke to snatch fleeing insects, terrified rodents, or discarded prey left by panicked grazers. Some even seem to start fires deliberately, dropping burning sticks into dry grass to flush out a living buffet. An eerie testament to the cleverness lurking behind those glinting yellow eyes. The paradoxes of the Rift's aerial war zone are endless. One might expect the strongest to dominate always, yet tiny kestrels, scarcely larger than a man's hand, command towering columns of air, hovering in perfect stillness while scanning for a twitch of mouse fur. One might assume vultures are only passive spectators, yet they often brawl savagely among themselves, battles of beak and wing that leave feathers and blood floating down like dark snowflakes. Even the sky itself conspires in these dramas. Thunderclouds gather at the margins of the rift, brooding like silent gods. When storms come, the raptors vanish into the gloom, hidden behind curtains of rain and electric fury, only to reappear in the aftermath, diving among the disoriented survivors who stumble from cover. In the rift, lightning clears the stage, the raptors deliver the final acts, and not even the trees are safe. The rift's rocky outcrops and thorny trees become sniper nests for ambush specialists like the bateleur eagle, a bird so striking in its red and black regalia that it seems a figment of fevered imagination. Short-tailed and acrobatic, the bateleur performs aerial tricks with reckless flair, swooping, diving, barrel-rolling through the sky, sometimes simply because it can. A daredevil flaunting its mastery of a realm where others merely survive. But for all their grace and pageantry, life as a raptor is a daily wager against starvation. Success is rare. A martial eagle may only kill once every 3 or 4 days. A vulture may circle for hours before stumbling across a carcass not already stripped clean. Even the fastest and fiercest must gamble precious energy with every dive, every strike, each failure carrying the risk of injury or death. In the rift, even the rulers of the air live by razor-thin margins. As evening bleeds into twilight, the sky changes once again. New hunters emerge, the owls, the silent ghosts of the rift's night. Their wings are edged with microscopic fringes that muffle sound, allowing them to swoop just feet above the ground without stirring a blade of grass. The great Vero's eagle owl, with its enormous pink-lidded eyes, reigns among them, plucking monkeys from trees and bats from the air with a solemn mechanical cruelty that seems almost surgical. Under the rift's changing skies, a brutal truth reveals itself. The ground, for all its blood and fury, is only half the battlefield. Above, another war rages, colder, sharper, quieter, waged by predators who kill with grace, precision, and a ruthlessness as vast as the endless heavens they call home. As the last light slips below the jagged horizons, a shadow passes silently overhead. A final reminder that in the rift, death can fall not with a roar or a snarl, but with a whisper. Ahead we plunge into the next generation of this brutal world, the predator cubs. Born into chaos, raised by struggle and tested by survival, we step into the perilous nursery of the rift's young warriors. Dawn breaks over the great rift with a brittle kind of beauty, the sky bleeding from indigo to pink, the grasses gilded in the low slant of the sun, the air still cool but thick with the promise of heat to come. On the cracked plains and in the tangled shadows of thickets, the rift's most precious and most expendable treasures begin to stir. Here, tucked into burrows, crouched beneath thorny shrubs, or hidden among riverbank reeds, are the young heirs to the blood-soaked kingdoms of East Africa. They are not the cuddly innocents of storybooks. They are warriors in training, and childhood in the rift is not a time of innocence, but a brutal apprenticeship in the arts of survival. Among the lion prides sprawled across the golden grasslands, the cubs roll and tumble in mock battles, their oversized paws smacking with surprising force, their tiny teeth flashing in playful savagery. It is easy to be charmed by the sight, until one notices the rawness of it, the way a playful nip can suddenly escalate into a blood-drawing bite, the way the weaker cubs are sometimes pushed aside, denied a turn at the mother's belly, sentenced to hunger in a place where missing a single meal can tip the scales toward death. Among lions, birthright matters, but toughness matters more. Cubs born to lower-ranking females, or orphaned too young by a pride takeover, may find themselves outcast long before adolescence, learning far earlier than they should that the rift does not weep for the weak. For the cheetah cubs hidden away in the tall grasses, the trials are even harsher. With no pride to shield them, they cling to their mother's tail as she leads them through a world stitched with danger. Their lessons begin before they can even run properly. Stay low, stay silent, watch the wind. Predators lurk in every direction, lions, hyenas, even opportunistic eagles. When the mother chases down a young gazelle, she does not immediately kill it. Instead, she wounds it, then releases it, allowing her cubs to practice the final essential art, the kill. It is a lesson delivered in trembling blood and desperate squeals, a harsh education that offers no apology. Here, mercy is a luxury that no one can afford. Yet even mastery of the hunt does not guarantee survival. Cheetah siblings, so often seen cuddled in a photogenic heap, are not above a quiet, ruthless competition. Fights over the mother's attention, her kills, and the choicest hiding spots are frequent and fierce. Sometimes, a stronger cub will edge its weaker sibling away from meals just enough times to ensure its own advantage. In the rift, favoritism is not a flaw, it is strategy, hardwired into the very sinew of life. Meanwhile, beneath the cover of night's last shadows, the hyena dens seethe with a different kind of brutality. Within these subterranean fortresses, hyena cubs, black-furred and round-eyed at birth, begin life with a shocking, paradoxical truth. Your greatest threat is your own sibling. Hyena litters often consist of two cubs, and almost immediately upon birth, the stronger sibling attacks the weaker, often fatally. It is called siblicide, and though it feels monstrous to human sensibilities, it is brutally pragmatic. Resources are scarce. Better to invest in one strong cub than two weak ones. Those who survive the first few days emerge into a rigid social hierarchy where every bite, every shove, every mock battle is a rehearsal for the dominant struggles that will define their futures. In the raucous chaos of the den, play fighting is no innocent pastime. It is an education in political maneuvering, an endless recalibration of status. A wrong move can mean ostracism, a broken bone, even death. Yet ironically, this gladiatorial nursery forges some of the rift's most formidable survivors. Cunning, resilient, and ruthlessly efficient. And far from the dry plains and thorny dens, along the sullen brown arteries of the rift's rivers, another generation sharpens itself against the grinding stone of survival. In the fetid warmth of muddy banks, crocodile hatchlings crack free of their leathery eggs, each no longer than a man's forearm, their eyes already glittering with ancient suspicion. Unlike the more attentive mothers of the mammalian world, crocodile parenting is a paradox of brutality and care. The female may gently scoop her hatchlings into her fearsome jaws to carry them safely to water, yet should food grow scarce, she might just as easily turn predator upon her own offspring. Once released into the river, the real ordeal begins. Everything, fish, herons, monitor lizards, sees a baby croc as a tempting mouthful. Only a fraction survive their first year, and those that do learn through constant blood-tinged trial to master the art of ambush before their bodies are even half-grown. A young crocodile does not rise to dominance by strength alone, but by patience, by mastering the act of becoming invisible long enough for opportunity to drift within snapping range. There is no safe corner in this nursery of monsters. Every lesson is steeped in danger. Play is edged with teeth. Nurture comes laced with betrayal. Childhood itself is a war of attrition, where the currency of survival is paid in scars, and the prize is a fragile future balanced precariously on instinct, speed, and ruthless wit. Only a tiny percentage of these cubs, pups, and hatchlings will see adulthood. Those who do will bear in their bones the hard wisdom of the rift, that in a world ruled by claw and fang, survival is not won by fortune alone, but by relentless, grinding will. And yet there is a strange, undeniable beauty in it. Watching a lion cub wrestle a brother twice his size, gritting through bruises for a chance to feed first. Seeing a cheetah cub sprint for the first time, stumbling, face-planting, and leaping back up with reckless glee. Catching sight of a fledgling hyena mastering the politics of the den with a deftness that would shame a diplomat, it is impossible not to marvel at the indomitable spirit that beats within the rift's smallest warriors. These young bloodlines are more than mere survivors. They are the future architects of the rift's endless wars, the next generation of kings, assassins, tricksters, and tyrants who will paint the savannah anew with their battles and victories. Every snarl, every chase, every narrow escape is a brick laid in the towering, teetering cathedral of life that defines this savage, astonishing place. As the first true heat of morning rises, the young ones melt back into the grasses, into burrows, into rivers, their lessons half learned, their fates half written. The rift does not promise mercy, only the endless opportunity to prove oneself. again and again, until the land itself remembers your name. Ahead, the land itself will become a weapon as the endless tides of the great migrations flood the rift, dragging predator and prey alike into a meat grinder of chaos, hunger, and death. Prepare to witness the brutal ballet of survival on a scale beyond imagination. It begins with a tremor, so faint that only the dust seems to notice, a ripple through the stillness, a low murmur as if the earth itself is muttering in anticipation. Far on the horizon, where the land dissolves into a shimmering haze, movement stirs, hesitant at first, like a wave unsure of itself, then swelling, building, surging into something unstoppable. The great migration has awakened, and with it, the rift braces for a season of chaos. Across the battered savannas and crumbling hills, armies of wildebeest gather, hundreds of thousands strong, each driven by the same relentless hunger, the promise of greener pastures just beyond the dying horizon. Beside them, zebras flash like monochrome fire through the golden grass, their calls sharp and urgent, their flanks twitching with the pulse of instinct. Gazelles, eland and topi fold into the procession, a million hooves carving fresh scars into the land. It is a sight that defies imagination, an endless river of muscle and dust, driven not by wisdom, but by a mad, ancient decree written into their blood. Move or die. Yet the rift, ever the trickster, does not lay a smooth path before them. Every step of this mass exodus leads through gauntlets of terror. The lush grasses they seek lie hidden behind a minefield of predators who have been waiting, sharpening their teeth on patience. Lions rouse from their sun-drugged lethargy, eyes gleaming with the cold fire of opportunity. Cheetahs pace the edges of the herds, selecting targets with surgical precision. Hyenas mobilize like seasoned generals, cutting off stragglers, coordinating silent ambushes. And somewhere, half seen among the riverbank reeds, crocodiles sink lower into the mud, jaws flexing with the anticipation of another bloody harvest. To migrate is not merely to move, it is to walk into the mouth of death, eyes open, hooves trembling. As the herds push forward, the landscape itself conspires against them. Rivers swell into barriers of brown rage, clogged with mud, hidden rocks, and the teeth of lurking monsters. To cross is to gamble everything. Mothers bellow and stallions rear, sensing the invisible tension snapping tight across the banks. Then, with a suddenness that seems almost involuntary, the first wildebeest lunges into the current, and the herd follows in a frenzied, suicidal stampede. The river crossings are spectacles of terror. Animals pile into the water, driven by the crushing urgency of those behind them, trampling the weak, the old, the hesitant. Crocodiles strike with thunderous violence, dragging prey under, twisting and spinning in the brutal dance of the death roll. Some animals drown in the panicked crush before a single predator's jaw can reach them, their bodies bobbing downstream like discarded offerings to a pitiless god. The air thickens with the smell of wet fur, churned mud, and the sharp metallic tang of blood. And yet, paradoxically, it is this very danger that sustains life across the rift. The carcasses left behind nourish everything from vultures to catfish to hyenas. Even the soil drinks from the carnage, growing lush again in the aftermath of death. Here, survival and destruction are not opposites but partners in a grim waltz, each feeding the other in an endless, grotesque renewal. On the open plains beyond the rivers, the dangers shift, but never relent. The herds must cross vast, featureless stretches of land where there is no place to hide, no barrier between them and the sharpened fangs of their enemies. Lion pride set ambushes along game trails, crouching low in the golden sea of grass, invisible until the final fatal moment. Cheetahs unleash their lightning sprints, seizing young or infirm wildebeest in bursts of impossible speed. Even the hyenas, often caricatured as mere scavengers, prove themselves cunning hunters, separating calves from their mothers with coordinated feints and relentless harassment. The most brutal irony of the Great Migration is that strength in numbers does not guarantee safety. In fact, it often magnifies vulnerability. The larger the herd, the greater the noise, the dust, the commotion, and the easier it is for predators to find them. The massed bodies create traffic jams at narrow river crossings, clogging escape routes, forcing the panicked into deadly bottlenecks. Sometimes even a simple stumble can be fatal, as the vast, unfeeling tide surges over the fallen without pause or mercy. Yet for all its horrors, the migration is also a breathtaking act of resilience. It is a testament to a collective willpower that defies common sense. Year after year, generation after generation, the herds hurl themselves into the same crucible of suffering because to stay behind means certain death from thirst or starvation. There is no comfort in the rift, only choices between different kinds of danger. Surprisingly, not all dangers come on four legs or with jaws. In the swirling dust clouds kicked up by the herds, tiny parasites thrive, infesting eyes and open wounds. Diseases spread like wildfire among the weakened, the injured, the young. Even weather turns traitor. Sudden storms can flood dry riverbeds without warning, sweeping away entire families in minutes. In the rift, death is not an exceptional event. It is the very texture of existence. Yet in this brutal crucible, something remarkable emerges. Those who survive grow stronger, tougher, wiser. The calves that dodge crocodiles and outpace lions carry the sharpened instincts of survivors into the next generation. The mothers who cross rivers while carrying their young upon their backs pass down not only their genes, but their indomitable spirit. Even in the face of daily slaughter, life refuses to yield. It adapts, it persists, it marches onward. As the sun sinks once more behind the jagged skyline of the rift, the herds press forward, silhouettes against a burning sky, a living tapestry woven from desperation, courage, and stubborn hope. The predators follow, shadows stitched into the edges of the light, silent and patient, knowing that tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, the great meat grinder will churn anew. Ahead, we step back into the very bones of the rift itself, to see how this land, ancient and furious, has been a battlefield of beasts for millions of years. From saber-tooth to lion, from monstrous croc to hyena warlord. The final chapter draws the blood-soaked map of past, present and future wars. Beneath the endless sweep of the Rift Valley's sky, beneath the grasses trampled by wildebeest hooves and the rivers churned by crocodile jaws, lies a far deeper battlefield, one hidden under layers of ash and bone and time. Long before the first lion's roar cracked the morning air, before the first cheetah unfurled its blistering sprint across the plains, this scar across Africa's belly was already a war zone. Its dust is thick with ancient blood. Its stones whisper stories of titans long gone, predators whose shadows once stretched across an entirely different earth. If you could peel away the present like a fragile skin, you would find a world stranger and more savage than any alive today. During the Miocene epoch, millions of years ago, the rift was a lush, swelling Eden, but an Eden with teeth. Gigantic crocodilians, some stretching over 30 feet long, lurked in primordial rivers, waiting to drag prehistoric antelope under with a snap that sounded like falling mountains. Elephants' ancestors with twin sets of tusks wandered the floodplains, and towering giraffids, awkward knobby creatures with impossible necks, fed high above a very different skyline. And where there is life, there must be hunters. Slicing through the mists of those ancient forests prowled the saber-tooths. Predators whose teeth were so absurdly elongated, they seemed to mock the very idea of subtlety. Yet they were no clumsy monsters. Built for power over endurance, their ambushes were short, brutal affairs, more like executions than chases. Fossilized bones, pierced cleanly through by dagger-like canines, litter the rift's old riverbeds, silent signatures of their passage. Nearby, giant hyenids, even more massive than today's laughing clans, cracked bones thick as tree limbs to reach the marrow inside, leaving gnawed relics for time itself to bury. Even the birds were touched by ferocity. Terror birds, relics from an earlier, more nightmarish chapter of avian history, once stalked the rift, towering over human ancestors with hooked beaks sharp enough to crush skulls like ripe fruit. And deeper still, in layers older than memory, are the claw marks of dinosaurs who ruled when the rift was merely a restless idea in the Earth's molten heart. Predators like Spinosaurus, swimming rivers larger than the Nile, and raptor-like hunters slicing through fern jungles once reigned supreme in lands now cracked and arid. Yet despite the passing of eons, despite extinctions and climate shifts and tectonic upheavals, the rift's core story has not changed. It has always been, and remains, a crucible where predator and prey are locked in an endless, brutal embrace. The players change, the costumes shift, but the script stays maddeningly the same. Today's lions, hyenas, leopards and crocs carry in their sinews the echoes of battles fought when mountains were still being born. Every crouched stalk, every sprint, Every savage lunge is not just instinct, it is inheritance, a blood memory drawn from ancestors who lived and died under the same merciless sun. Even their rivalries echo ancient conflicts, the big cats clashing for dominance, the opportunists shadowing the hunters, the river dwellers lashing out from the depths. But while the primal rhythms of survival beat on, a new and unsettling drum has entered the rift's ancient symphony. Us. The evidence is everywhere, woven like a new scar into the old ones. Roads bisect migration corridors. Fences funnel desperate herds into dead-end bottlenecks. Expanding human settlements fray the edges of wilderness, pushing predators into shrinking islands of contested ground. Lions, once the undisputed monarchs of endless territory, now find themselves squeezed into ever smaller pockets, forced into unnatural proximity with rival prides and human villages. Hyenas adapt with their usual cleverness, turning to scavenging from trash heaps, raiding livestock, becoming both feared and despised. The rivers too change under our hand. Dams alter flood cycles, starving some areas of water while drowning others. Pollution seeps into once pristine watering holes, poisoning the very arteries that have sustained the rift's lifeblood for millennia. Even the sky, that vast arena of raptors and rolling clouds, grows emptier as species falter under the pressures of disappearing prey and rising temperatures. Climate change, that most relentless of predators, now stalks the rift alongside lions and leopards. Droughts lengthen, rain patterns shift. The great migrations falter, confused, desperate, dying not only under the jaws of crocodiles, but beneath the unrelenting hunger of a changed earth. And with each collapse, each lost herd, 100 invisible threads snap across the web of life, unraveling balances so ancient they were once thought immutable. Yet despite the grim encroachments of a human-dominated age, the rift is not ready to surrender. Life here is stubborn beyond belief. Lions learn to hunt cattle when wildebeest vanish, adapting strategy with uncanny speed. Wildebeest alter migration routes, probing new paths carved between farmlands and highways. Cheetahs, against all odds, birth new cubs in the shrinking pockets of safety they can still find, weaving the next fragile generation into the fraying tapestry of survival. Even the predators of the past seem reluctant to release their grip. In 2019, a fossil unearthed near Lake Turkana revealed a gigantic hyena species previously unknown. A chilling reminder that the rift's past is never truly dead, only buried under layers of time waiting to resurface. Somewhere in the swirling dust, the bones of saber-tooths and terror birds still dream of blood. As twilight falls once more over the rift, painting the land in aching shades of crimson and indigo, the current warriors of this ancient arena stir to life. Lions shake dust from their manes and slip into the gathering darkness. Hyenas lift their heads to the wind, their laughter threading through the cool air like a needle through cloth. Crocodiles sink deeper into the river's black mirror, and high above, the first raptor silhouettes glide across the molten sky. The wars of the rift are not finished. They are older than memory, deeper than fear, and larger than time itself. As long as the rift breathes, the eternal struggle will rage on. A dance of claws and teeth, of cunning and blood, where survival is not just a battle, but a brutal, magnificent legacy passed from one bloodline to the next. And in this living arena, carved by fire, watered by death, and crowned by the endless sky, the greatest predator of all may yet be the one who learns to fight, not against nature, but to fight for it.